All right, chapter 14. In October 1904, a wolf belonging to Captain Baines of Shotley Bridge, 12 miles from Newcastle, England, escaped, and soon afterward, killing of sheep were reported from the region of Hexham, about 20 miles from Newcastle. There seems to be an obvious conclusion. We have had some experience with conclusions that were said to be obvious. A story of a wolf in England is worth space, and the London newspapers rejoiced in this wolf story. Most of them did, but there are several that would not pay much attention to a dinosaur hunt in Hyde Park. Special correspondents were sent to Hexham, Northumberland. Some of them, because of circumstances that we shall note, wrote that there was no wolf, but probably a large dog that had turned evil. Most of them wrote that undoubtedly a wolf was ravaging and was known to have escaped from Shotley Bridge. Something was slaughtering sheep, killing for food, and killing wantonly, sometimes mutilating 4 or 5 sheep and devouring one. An appetite was ravaging in Northumberland. We have impressions of the capacity of a large and hungry dog, but upon reading these accounts, one has to think that they were exaggerations or that the killer must have been more than a wolf. But according to developments, I'd not say that there was much exaggeration. The killings were so serious that the farmers organized into the Hexham Wolf Committee, offering a reward and hunting systematically. Every hunt was fruitless except as material for the special correspondents who told of continuing depredations and reveled in special announcements. It was especially announced that upon December 15th, the Hayden foxhounds, one of the most special packs in England, would be sent out. These English dogs, of degree so high as to be incredible in all other parts of the world, went forth. It is better for something of high degree not to go forth. Mostly in times of peace arise great military reputations. So long as something is not tested, it may be of high renown. But the Hayden foxhounds went forth. They returned with their renown damaged. This takes us to another of our problems. Who can blame a celebrity for not smelling an absence? There are not only wise men, there are wise dogs, we learn. The Wolf Committee heard of Monarch, the celebrated bloodhound. The celebrity was sent for, and when he arrived, it was with such a look of sagacity that the sheep farmer's troubles were supposed to be over. The wise dog was put on what was supposed to be the trail of the wolf, but if there weren't any wolf, who can blame a celebrated bloodhound for not smelling something that wasn't? The wise dog sniffed, then he sat down. It was impossible to set this dog on the trail of a wolf, though each morning he was taken to a place of fresh slaughter. Well, then, what else is there in all this? If locally one of the most celebrated intellects in England could not solve the problem, it may be that the fault was in taking it up locally. Throughout many time of gathering material for this book, it was my way to note something and not to regard it as isolated and to search widely for other occurrences that might associate with it. So then I noted this wolf story and I settled upon this period of the winter of 1904-5 with the idea of collecting records of seemingly most incongruous occurrences, which, however, might be germs of correlations. Such as this, for instance, but what could one of these occurrences have to do with the other? That in the that in this winter of 1904 or 5 there were two excitements in Northumberland. One was the wolf hunt, and the other was a revival craze which had spread from Wales to England. At the time of the wolf hunt, there was religious mania in Northumberland. Men and women staggered as they wept and shouted, bearing reeling lights and delirious torchlight processions. In Monarch, the If Monarch, the celebrated bloodhound, sniffed and then sat down, I feel myself that the trail cannot be picked up in Hexham. It was a time of widespread uncanny occurrences in Great Britain, but in no account of any one uncanny occurrence have I read of any writer's awareness that there were other uncanny occurrences, or more than one or two other uncanny occurrences. There were many special scares. At this time in Great Britain, there was no general scare. The contagions of popular delusions cannot be lugged in as a general explanation. Strange, luminous things or beings were appearing in Wales, and Wales had started one of the most widely hysterical religious revivals of modern times. A light in the sky and a pious screech. I sniff, but I don't sit down. A wolf and a light and a screech. There are elaborate accounts of the luminous things or beings in the Proc SPR Volume 19 and in the first volume of the Occult Review. We are told that over the piously palpitating principality of Wales, shining things traveled, stopping and descending when they came to a revival meeting, associating in some unknown way with these centers of excitation, especially where Mrs. Mary Jones was the leader. There is a story of one shining thing that persistently followed Mrs. Jones's car and was not taken off when the car turned abruptly from one road to another. So far as acceptability is concerned, I prefer the accounts by newspapermen. It took considerable to convince them. Writers sent to Wales by London newspapers sent out with blithe incredulity. Almost everybody was hankering for mysteries, but it is likely to be an abstract hankering, and when a mystery comes up in one's own experience, one is likely to treat it in a way that warns everybody else that one is not easily imposed upon. The first reports that were sent back by the Londoners were flippant, but in the London Daily Mail, February 13th, 1905, one of these correspondents describes something like a ball of fire, which he saw in the sky, a brilliant object that was motionless for a while, then disappearing. Later, he came upon such an appearance near the ground, not 500 feet away. He ran towards it, but the thing disappeared. Then Bernard Redwood was sent by the Daily Mail to investigate. In the Mail, February 13th, he writes that there were probably will-o'-wisps helped out by practical jokers. As we very well know, there is no more helpful creature than practical jokers, but as inquiry stoppers, will-o'-wisps have played out. A conventionalist telling the story today would say that there were luminous bats from a chapel belfry and that a sexton had shot one. Almost every writer who accepted that these things were thought that in some unknown or unknowable way they were associated with the revival. It is said that they were seen hovering over chapels. According to my methods, I have often settled upon special periods, gathering data with the idea of correlating, but I have never came upon any other time in which were reported so many uncanny occurrences. There were teleportations in a butcher shop, or things were mysteriously flying about in a butcher shop in Portmadoc, Wales. The police were called in and they accused a girl who was employed in the butcher shop. She made a full confession. A ghost in Barmouth, no details. Most of the records are mere paragraphs, but the newspapers gave considerable space to reported phenomena in the home of Mr. Howell at Lampeter, Wales. As told in the London Daily News, February 11th and 13th, mysterious knockings were heard in this house and crowds gathered outside. The Bishop of Swansea and Professor Harris investigated but could not explain. Crowds in the street became so great that extra police had to be called out to regulate traffic, but nothing was learned. There were youngsters in this house, but they did not confess. Mr. Howell had what is known as standing in his community. It's the housemaid or the girl in the butcher shop with parents who presumably haven't much standing, who is knocked about or more gently slugged or perhaps only slapped on the face, who confesses or is said to have confessed. Also, as told in the Liverpool Echo, February 15th, there was excitement at Rimini, Wales, and investigations that came to nothing. Tapping sounds had been heard and strange lights had been seen in one of the revival centers, the Salvation Army Barracks. Whether these lights were like the other lights that were appearing in Wales, I cannot say. It was the assertion of the Reverend J. Evans and other investigators who had spent a night in the barracks that they had seen very bright lights. In the Southern Daily Echo, February 23rd, is an account of mysterious rappings on a door of a house in Crewe and of a young woman in the house who is said to have dropped dead. A physician pronounced her dead, but there was an inquest, and the coroner said there is not a single sign of death. Nevertheless, she was officially dead and she was buried anyway. I am too dim in my notions of possible correlations to go into details, but along with my supposition that ordinarily, what is that word? Catalepsy? Hold on. Damn you, Fort. I am too dim in my notions of possible correlations to gain into details. But, along with my supposition that ordinarily catalepsy is of rare occurrence, I note that I have records of 3 persons who, in this period, were aroused from trances in time to save them from being buried alive. There are data of strange suicides that I shall pass over. I have several dozen records of mysterious fires in this period. Slaughtered in Northumberland, farmers who could housing their sheep at night, others setting up lanterns in their fields. Monarch, the celebrated bloodhound, who could not smell something that perhaps was not, got no more space in the newspapers, and to a woman, the inhabitants of Hexham stopping sending him chrysanthemums. But faith in celebrities kept up, as it always will keep up, and when the Hungarian wolf hunter appeared, the only reason that a brass band did not escort him in showers of torn up telephone books is that away back in this winter, Hexham, like most of the other parts of England, was not yet Americanized. It was before the English were educated. The moving pictures were not of much influence then. The Hungarian wolf hunter, mounted on a shaggy Hungarian pony, galloped over hills and dales, and with strange Hungarian hunting cries made what I think is called the welkin ring. He might as well have sat down and sniffed. He might as well have been a distinguished general or admiral at the outbreak of a war. 4 sheep were killed at Low Escalus and 1 at Shedham in one night. Then came the big hunt on December 20th, which, according to expectations, would be final. The big hunt set out from Hexham, gatekeepers, woodmen, farmers, local sportsmen, and sportsmen from far away. There were men on horseback and 2 men in traps. A man on a bicycle and a mounted policeman. 2 women with guns, one of them in a blue walking dress, if that details any good to us. They came wandering back at the end of the day, not having seen anything to shoot at. Some said that it was because there wasn't anything. Everybody else had something to say about Captain Baines. The most unpopular person in the north of England at this time was Captain Baines of Shotley Bridge. Almost every night, something, presumably Captain Baines' wolf, even though there was no findable statement that a wolf had been seen, was killing and devouring sheep. In Brighton, an unknown force or thing struck notes on a musical instrument. Later, there were stories of a phantom bicyclist near Brighton. In the journal SPR 13-259 is published somebody's statement that near the village of Hoe Benham, he had seen something that looked like a large dog turn into a seeming donkey. Strange sounds heard near Bolton, Lancaster, nothing but the beating of a rope against a flagstaff. Then it was said that a figure had been seen. A doorbell was mysteriously ringing at Blackheath, London, police watching the house but unable to find out anything. But in not one of these accounts is shown knowledge that, about the same time, other accounts were being published. Look in the publication of SPR and wonder what that society was doing. It did investigate 2 of the cases told of in this chapter, but no awareness is shown of a period of widespread occurrences. Other phenomena or alleged phenomena, a ghost at Extraordinary, no details. Strange sounds and lights in a house, in Epworth. People in Bradford thought that they saw a figure enter a clubhouse. Police notified, fruitless search. At Edinburgh, Mr. J.E. Newlands, who held the Fulton chair at the United Free College, saw a figure moving beside him. But the outstanding phenomenon of this period was the revival. Liverpool Echo, January 18th, Wales in the grip of supernatural forces. This was an allusion to the developing frenzies of the revival and the accompanying luminous things or beings that had been reported. Supernatural is a word that has no place in my vocabulary. In my view, it has no meaning or distinguishment. If there never has been, finally, a natural explanation of anything, everything is, naturally enough, the supernatural. The grip was a grab by a craze. The excitement was combustion or psychoelectricity or almost anything except what it was supposed to be, and perhaps when flowing from human batteries, there was a force that was of use to the luminous things that hung around. Maybe they fed upon it and grew and glowed brilliantly with nourishing ecstasies. See data upon astonishing growths of plants when reviving other kinds of radioactive nourishment or stimulation. If a man can go drunk on God, he may usefully pass along his exhilarations to other manifestations of godness. There were flares where they'd least be expected. In the big stores, in the midst of waiting on customers, shop girls would suddenly or electrically start clapping hands and singing. Very likely some of them cut up such capers for the sport of it and enjoyed keeping hard customers waiting. I noticed that, though playing upon widely different motives, popular excitements are recruited and kept going as if they were homogeneous. There's no understanding huge emotional revolts against sin without considering all the fun there is in them. They are monotony breakers. Drab little personalities have a chance to scream themselves vivid. There were confession addicts who, past possibly of being believed, proclaimed their own wickedness and then turned to public confessions for their neighbors until sinful neighbors appealed to the law for protection. In one town, a man went from store to store, returning things that he had not stolen. Bands of girls roved the streets, rushing earnestly and mischievously into the more sedate churches where the excitation was not encouraged, singing and clapping their hands, all of them shouting, and some of them blubbering, and then some of the most sportive ones blubbering, compelled into a temporary uniformity. This clapping of hands in time with the singing was almost irresistible. Some vibrational reason, power of the rhythm to harmonize diverse units, primitive power of the drum beat. Special trains set out from Liverpool to Welsh meeting places with sightseers who hadn't a concern for the good of their souls, vendors of things that might have a sale, some earnest ones. Hand clapping started up and emotional fury shot through Wales. There were ghost scares in the towns of Blyth and Dover. Blyth News, March 14th. Crowds gathered around a schoolhouse, something of a ghostly nature inside, nothing but the creaking of a partition. 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 I pick up something else. We wonder how far our neo-medievalism is going to take us. Perhaps, though our interpretations will not be the same, only medievalism will be the limit. Blyth News, February 28th. Smoke that was seen coming from the windows of a house in Blyth. Neighbors broke in and found the body of the occupant, Barbara Bell, age 77, on a sofa. Her body was burned, as if for a long time it had been in the midst of intense flames. It was thought that the victim had fallen into the fireplace. The body was fearfully charred. Something was slaughtering sheep and things in the sky of Wales, and it may be that there were things or beings that acted like fire, consuming the bodies of women. London Daily News, December 17th, 1904. Yesterday morning, Mrs. Thomas Cochrane of Rochelle, Falkirk, widow of a well-known local gentleman, was found burned to death in her bedroom. No fire in the grate. Burned almost beyond recognition. No outcry. Little, if anything else, burned. Body found, sitting in a chair surrounded by pillows and cushions. London Daily Mail, December 24th, inquest on the body of a woman who had died of the effects of mysterious burns. She could give no account of her injuries, and an almshouse late at night and something burned a woman. Trinity Almshouse, Hull. Story told in the Hull Daily Mail, January 6th. Body covered with burns, woman still living when found in the morning. Strange that there had been no outcry, bed unscorched. The woman, Elizabeth Clark, could tell nothing of her injuries, and she died without giving a clue to the mystery. There was no fire nor light in the room. On both sides of the River Teign, something kept on slaughtering. It crossed the Tyne, having killed on one side, then killing on the other side. At East Dipton, 2 sheep were devoured, all but the fleece and the bones, and the same night 2 sheep were killed on the other side of the river. The big game hunter from India. Another celebrity came forth. The Wolf Committee met him at the station. There was a plaid shawl strapped to his back, and the flaps of his hunting cap were considered unprecedented. Almost everybody had confidence in the shawl or felt that the flaps were authoritative. The devices by which he covered his ears made beholders feel that they were in the presence of science. Hexham Herald, the right man at last. So finally, the wolf hunt was taken up scientifically. The ordinary hunts were going on, but the wise men from India would have nothing to do with them. In his cap, with flaps such as had never before been seen in Northumberland, and with his plaid shawl strapped to his back, he was going from farm to farm, sifting and dating and classifying observations, drawing maps, card indexing his data. For some situations, this is the best of methods, but something that the Methodist wise men cannot learn is that a still better method is that of not being so tied to any particular method. It was a serious matter in Hexham. The ravaging thing was an alarming pest. There were some common hunters who were unmannerly over all this delay. But the Hexham Herald came out strong for science, the right man in the right place at last. I think I'll stop.